The stars had not changed in 3,000 years. They still burned the same cold light across the empty spaces between worlds. But everything else had changed, and Commander Xyrith was about to learn this lesson in the hardest way possible. His ship, the Vulthury observation vessel called the Silent Witness, dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of a solar system that his people had not visited in 30 centuries. The mission was simple. Go to the dead world. Take pictures of the ruins. Record how the primitive species had destroyed itself. Then return home and file the report so the Vulthury Dominion could finally claim the planet for colonization. Xyrith stood on the bridge with his 4 arms folded behind his back. His gray skin reflected the blue glow of the control panels. His 4 eyes watched the main view screen as it flickered to life, showing the 3rd planet from the yellow sun. Earth. That was what the primitives had called it. Just a simple word meaning dirt or ground. The Vulthury had watched this world for 200 years before they left. They had studied the creatures who lived there. Humans, they called themselves. Violent, tribal, constantly fighting wars over patches of land and differences in belief. The Vulthury scientists had run thousands of simulations. Every single one ended the same way. The humans would destroy themselves within 1,000 years. Nuclear weapons, biological warfare, environmental collapse. It did not matter which one came first. The result was always extinction. So the Vulthury had left. They had better things to do than watch a doomed species tear itself apart. Entering orbital range, said Navigation Officer Keth. She was young, barely 300 years old, and this was her first deep space mission. Activating long-range sensors now. Xyrith nodded. He expected to see a brown, dead world. Oceans boiled away by nuclear fire. Continents covered in ash and dust. Perhaps a few scattered ruins where cities once stood. That was what the simulations had predicted. The view screen cleared. Xyrith stared at it. He did not move. He did not breathe. Earth was alive. Not just alive. It was thriving. Lights covered every continent. Millions of lights arranged in patterns that could only be cities. Huge cities connected by glowing lines that had to be transportation networks. The oceans were blue and clean. Green forests spread across the land masses. And in orbit around the planet, Xyrith counted hundreds of structures. Space stations, shipyards, defense platforms. That is not possible, Keth whispered. Her voice was shaking. Science Officer Vrel ran her fingers across her console, checking the readings again and again. The sensors are not malfunctioning, Commander. The planet is heavily populated. I am detecting approximately 12 billion life signs on the surface. And there are more in orbit. Many more. Xyrith's primary hearts began to beat faster. What about radiation? Signs of past nuclear conflict? Minimal. Background levels only. There is no evidence of large-scale nuclear war in the past 3,000 years. That cannot be right. Check again. I have checked 17 times, Commander. The readings are accurate. Keth suddenly made a sound of alarm. Commander, I am detecting ships. Many ships. They are moving toward us from the orbital stations. Xyrith looked at the tactical display. Red dots were appearing all around Earth's orbit. Dozens of them. Then hundreds. Ships of all sizes, from small patrol craft to massive vessels that dwarfed his own observation ship. They moved in perfect formation, spreading out to surround the Silent Witness. Those ships, Rel said slowly, are not using any propulsion technology in our databases. I cannot identify their weapon systems either, but I am detecting enormous energy signatures. Commander, a single one of those large vessels is outputting more power than our entire home fleet combined. Xyrith felt something cold spreading through his chest. It was fear. He had not felt fear in centuries. The Velthari were the most advanced civilization in this region of space. They had no enemies. They had nothing to fear. Until now, a communication signal cut through their systems. It bypassed their encryption like it was not even there. A voice filled the bridge. It spoke in perfect Velthari language with the formal accent of the High Council. Unidentified vessel, you have entered United Earth Sovereignty space. You will identify yourselves immediately. You will not move. You will not attempt to flee. Any hostile action will result in your immediate destruction. This is your only warning. The bridge crew looked at Xyrith. He could see the terror in their eyes. These were scientists and observers. They had never been in a combat situation. None of them had. This is Commander Xyrith of the Velthari Dominion observation vessel Silent Witness, he said, keeping his voice steady with great effort. We are on a peaceful survey mission. We mean no harm. There was a long pause. Then the voice returned. Velthari Dominion. We know that name. Stand by for escort to Gateway Prime Station. Do not deviate from the course we provide. Do not activate any weapon systems. Do not attempt to scan our vessels or installations. Failure to comply will result in destruction. The communication ended. A moment later, a flight path appeared on their navigation display. 4 of the human ships moved into position around the Silent Witness, boxing them in. Commander, Keth said quietly, what do we do? Xyrith stared at the view screen. The planet Earth filled the display, blue and green, and covered with the lights of a civilization that should not exist. A civilization that his people had written off as dead 3,000 years ago. We follow their instructions, he said. We do exactly what they say. But Commander, we are Velthari. We do not take orders from lesser species. Xyrith turned to look at his young navigation officer. Look at those ships, Keth. Look at their power readings. Look at how many there are. Does that look like a lesser species to you? Keth had no answer. The Silent Witness began moving along the designated path, surrounded by human warships. Xyrith watched the planet grow larger on the view screen. Somewhere down there, 12 billion humans were living their lives. Building things. Creating things. Doing all the things his people had said they would never do. The simulations had been wrong. The predictions had failed. And now Xyrith was flying into the heart of a civilization that had every reason to hate his kind. He thought about the old records. The ones that described how the Velthari had watched humanity suffer through plagues and wars and famines. How they had observed without helping. How they had decided that humans were not worth saving, for the first time in his very long life. Commander Xyrith wondered if his people had made a terrible mistake. The space station called Gateway Prime grew larger ahead of them. It was enormous, a spinning ring of metal and light that could have held 1 million people. Human ships moved around it like insects around a hive. Xyrith straightened his uniform and prepared to face whatever waited for him inside. He had a feeling it would not be pleasant. The docking bay of Gateway Prime was larger than any structure Xyrith had ever seen. His entire observation vessel fit inside it like a small toy in a massive box. Through the windows of the Silent Witness, he could see dozens of other ships parked in neat rows. Some of them were human vessels. Others belonged to species he did not recognize at all. That worried him more than anything else. The Velthari had mapped this entire region of space. They knew every intelligent species within 500 light years. Or at least, they thought they did. But these ships had designs and markings that appeared in no Velthari database. Commander, Vrel said from her station, I am detecting life signs from at least 7 different species in this station. Only 2 of them match our records. Which 2? Humans, obviously. And the Rathani. Xyrith felt his stomach tighten. The Rithani were a reptilian species from a nearby star system. The Velthari had classified them as primitive tool users and left them alone. They were supposed to be centuries away from space travel, yet here they were, walking alongside humans in a massive space station. The airlock opened with a hiss. Human soldiers stepped inside. They wore armor that covered them from head to toe, black and silver metal that hummed with energy. Their faces were hidden behind helmets with glowing visors. Each one carried a weapon that Xyrith could not identify. "Commander Xyrith," one of them said through a speaker in the helmet, "you and your crew will come with us. Leave all weapons and scanning devices on your ship." Xyrith nodded to his crew. They had no choice. There were 20 soldiers in the airlock, and the silent witness had no weapons at all. It was an observation vessel, not a warship. They walked through long corridors filled with people. Humans in colorful clothing, Rithani with their scaled skin and yellow eyes. Other beings that Xyrith had never seen before. Some had fur. Some had feathers. Some seemed to be made of living crystal. All of them moved freely, talking and laughing and going about their daily lives. None of them seemed afraid of the Velthari. None of them seemed impressed either. A few humans glanced at Xyrith and his crew with curiosity. One small human child pointed at them and asked her mother a question. The mother looked at the Velthari, shrugged, and kept walking. That simple gesture hurt more than any weapon could. The Velthari Dominion ruled over 40 star systems. They were the most powerful civilization in this part of the galaxy. Entire species bowed before them, and this human child looked at them like they were nothing special at all. The soldiers led them to a large room with a long table. Windows along one wall showed Earth floating in the blackness of space. 2 humans waited for them inside. The first was an older woman with silver hair cut short. She wore a simple dark uniform with a few medals on her chest. Her eyes were gray and cold, like winter ice. She did not smile when the Velthari entered. The second was a younger man with brown skin and a shaved head. He stood slightly behind the woman, his arms crossed, watching the aliens with obvious distrust. "I am Admiral Kate Morrison," the woman said. "This is Captain Danny Reeves. Sit down." It was not a request. Xyrith said. His crew followed. Kate Morrison remained standing. She looked at each Velthari in turn, studying them like a scientist might study an interesting insect. "Do you know how long it has been since your people left Earth?" she asked. 3,047 standard years, Xyrith replied. 3,047 years, Kate repeated. "That is a very long time. Long enough for everything to change. Long enough for the weak to become strong. Long enough for the abandoned to build something new." She walked slowly around the table. Danny Reeves kept his eyes fixed on Xyrith. "We found your observation posts," Kate continued. "The ones you left behind when you decided we were not worth watching anymore. We found your records, your notes, your predictions." She stopped directly in front of Xyrith. Her eyes burned into his. "You watched us die. For 200 years, your people sat in orbit and watched us suffer through wars and diseases and famines. You had medicine that could have saved millions, technology that could have fed the hungry, knowledge that could have united our divided nations. And you did nothing." Xyrith tried to speak. "Our laws forbid interference with developing species. We could not. Do not talk to me about your laws." Kate's voice was quiet, but it cut like a blade. "You interfered plenty. You took samples of our people. You performed experiments. We found the records of that too. You just chose not to help us. There is a big difference." Danny Reeves spoke for the first time. "We also found your predictions. The ones that said we would destroy ourselves. You were very confident about that. Every simulation said the same thing. Humans would be extinct within 1,000 years. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Your simulations were wrong. Kate returned to her seat and sat down across from Xyrith. Let me tell you what happened after you left, Commander. We fought more wars. We made more mistakes. We nearly did destroy ourselves a few times. But every time we fell, we got back up. Every war taught us something. Every disaster made us stronger. And eventually, we stopped fighting each other. We united. We built ships. We reached the stars. And then, Danny added, we met the Rithani. Xyrith remembered the reptilian beings he had seen in the corridors. The Rithani were classified as primitive. They should not have achieved space travel for another 500 years. They did not achieve it, Kate said. We gave it to them. Xyrith stared at her. You gave away advanced technology to a primitive species? That violates every principle of responsible galactic development. Kate laughed. It was not a happy sound. You abandoned them too, Commander. Just like you abandoned us. The Rithani were dying. Their sun was becoming unstable. They had maybe 100 years before their entire planet became unlivable. Your people knew this. It was in your records. And you decided to let them die because they were not developed enough to save. She leaned forward. We decided differently. We gave them ships. We helped them move to new worlds. We shared everything we had. And do you know what happened? They became our friends, our allies, our family. Danny pulled out a small device and projected a star map above the table. Xyrith looked at it and felt his blood run cold. Human territory covered 47 star systems. But that was not what frightened him. What frightened him were the other colors on the map. Rithani space, Korvax space, Scylla space, a dozen other species, all connected to human territory by trade routes and alliance lines. You built an empire, Xyrith whispered. No, Kate said. We built a family. The difference is that families choose to stay together. Empires force people to obey. We gave everyone a choice. They chose us. She stood up again and walked to the window. Earth hung in the darkness behind her. Your ship will remain here while we decide what to do with you. Your crew will be treated well. You will have food and quarters. But you will not leave this station. And you will not contact your government. We will do that ourselves. Xyrith opened his mouth to protest, but Kate cut him off. You left us alone in the dark, Commander. For 3,000 years, we wondered why. We prayed for help that never came. We watched children die from diseases you could have cured. So forgive me if I do not care about your comfort right now. She walked toward the door. Danny Reeves followed. Welcome to human space, Kate said without looking back. Try not to make things worse than they already are. The door closed behind them, and Xyrith was left alone with his crew and the terrible weight of his people's mistakes. Days passed on Gateway Prime. Xyrith and his crew were given comfortable quarters and good food. They were allowed to move freely through certain parts of the station. Guards followed them everywhere, but they were not treated like prisoners. That almost made it worse, if the humans had been cruel. Xyrith could have told himself that they were the monsters his people believed them to be. If they had been violent or savage, he could have justified the Velthari decision to abandon them. But the humans were none of those things. They were polite. They were organized. They ran their station with a level of efficiency that impressed even the Velthari science officers. And everywhere Xyrith looked, he saw species working together. In the food halls, humans sat with Rithani and shared meals. In the engineering sections, beings from 5 different worlds worked side by side to maintain the station's systems. Children of different species played together in the recreation areas. laughing and chasing each other without any sign of fear or hatred. It was everything the Velthari Dominion claimed to stand for. And the humans had built it without any help from anyone. On his 5th day aboard the station, Xyrath was walking through a quiet corridor when he found a large open space he had not seen before. It was a garden filled with plants from Earth, trees with green leaves, flowers in every color, grass soft under his feet. A small stream ran through the middle, the water clear and clean. But the most striking feature was the wall. It stretched from one end of the garden to the other. Black stone, polished smooth, covered with names. Millions of names carved in tiny letters. The wall seemed to go on forever. Xyrath walked closer and saw that the names were organized by date. The earliest ones began about 3,000 years ago, right after the Velthari left. It is called the Abandonment Memorial. He turned. A young human woman stood behind him. She had dark hair pulled back in a simple tail and brown eyes that looked very tired. She wore the plain clothes of a civilian, not the uniform of a soldier. "My name is Megan Cole," she said. "I am a historian. Admiral Morrison asked me to answer any questions you might have about human history." Xyrath looked back at the wall of names. "What is this place?" Megan walked past him and stood before the wall. She reached out and touched one of the names with her fingertips. "These are the names of everyone who died in the 1st century after your people left. Earth, wars, famines, plagues, natural disasters. All the deaths that might have been prevented if someone had helped us." Xyrath felt cold despite the warmth of the garden. "How many names are there?" 2.7 billion. The number hit him like a physical blow. 2.7 billion lives. Each one a person with hopes and dreams and people who loved them. Each one dead because the Velthari had decided not to help. "We keep this memorial so that we never forget," Megan continued. "Not because we want revenge, but because we want to remember what it felt like to be alone. To watch the stars and know that someone was up there who could have helped but chose not to." She turned to face him. Her expression was not angry. It was sad. "Do you know what the worst part was, Commander? It was not the dying. It was the hope. For generations after your ships left, humans kept looking up at the sky. They kept hoping that the visitors would come back, that someone would save them. Children grew up hearing stories about the beings from the stars who had watched over them. They believed help would come." Megan's voice grew quieter. "It never did. Eventually, we stopped hoping. We stopped looking up. And we started looking at each other instead. We realized that no one was coming to save us. If we wanted to survive, we had to save ourselves." Xyrath stared at the endless names on the wall. He thought about the reports he had read as a young officer. The careful, clinical descriptions of human suffering. The charts and graphs showing death tolls. The projections that treated an entire species as nothing more than data points. "I do not know what to say," he admitted. "You do not have to say anything," Megan replied. "I did not bring you here to make you feel guilty. I brought you here because Admiral Morrison wants you to understand something." "What does she want me to understand?" Megan gestured at the garden around them. "Look at this place. Look at the station outside. Look at Earth through any window. We built all of this after you left. We became what we are not because of you, but because we had no other choice. Every name on this wall represents a failure, and every light on that planet represents our refusal to let those failures define us." She walked toward the stream and sat down on a bench beside it. Xyrath followed and sat next to her. "Your people watched us for 200 years, Megan said. "You saw our worst moments, our wars, our cruelty, our stupidity, and you decided that was all we were. You could not imagine that we might grow beyond it. The simulations." Xyrath started. The simulations were wrong because they could not account for something your people do not understand. Megan looked at him with those tired, wise eyes. Humans change. We learn. We make terrible mistakes, and then we figure out how not to make them again. It takes time. It takes pain. But we always move forward. That is what your simulations missed. You saw where we were and assumed that was where we would stay. Zyrith thought about his own people. The Velthari lived for thousands of years. They changed slowly, if at all. Their society had been the same for longer than human civilization had existed. The idea of rapid growth and change was foreign to them. When we reached the stars, Megan continued, we found your old observation posts. We read your reports about us. They describe humans the way a scientist might describe bacteria in a dish. Cold, clinical, completely without feeling. She picked up a small stone and tossed it into the stream. But we also found your reports about other species. The Rethani, the Korvax, the Silith. All of them classified as too primitive to help. All of them left to die or develop on their own. And we realized something important. What did you realize? That the Velthari Dominion is not evil. Your people do not hate other species. You simply do not care about them. To you, younger civilizations are interesting specimens to study and then ignore. Their suffering does not matter because you do not see them as real people. Zyrith wanted to argue, but the words died in his throat. He thought about his training, his education, the way he had been taught to view other species as subjects of study rather than beings worthy of respect. Megan stood up and straightened her clothes. That is what Admiral Morrison wants you to understand. Commander, the Velthari did not abandon us out of cruelty. You abandoned us because you did not think we mattered. And now, 3,000 years later, you have come back to find that we do matter, that we have built something you never expected, and you have to decide what you are going to do about it. She began walking toward the exit of the garden. Wait, Zyrith called. What should we do? What do the humans want from us? Megan stopped but did not turn around. I cannot speak for all humans, but I can tell you what I want. I want your people to look at this memorial. I want them to read every name. I want them to understand that these were real people who died real deaths. And then I want them to decide if they are going to keep treating the galaxy the way they always have, or if they are going to change. She looked over her shoulder at him. Because we changed, Commander. Against all odds, against all your predictions, we changed. The question is whether your people can do the same. She walked away, leaving Zyrith alone in the garden with 2.7 billion names in the weight of history, pressing down on his shoulders. He stayed there for hours, reading names until his eyes could not focus anymore. When he finally left, he felt like a different person than the one who had entered. He was beginning to understand why his people were afraid. 10,000 light years away, the Velthari High Council met in the Chamber of Stars. The room was ancient, built before humans had learned to make fire. Its walls were carved from a single piece of dark crystal that showed the movements of nearby star systems in real time. 12 elders sat in a circle, their gray robes marking their status as the most powerful beings in the Dominion. Elder Varus stood at the center of the circle. He was old even by Velthari standards, nearly 9,000 years old, and he had served on the council for most of that time. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched species evolve from primitives to spacefaring civilizations. Nothing surprised him anymore. Until today. The holographic display before him showed Commander Zyrith's report. Images of Earth, readings from human ships, recordings of the conversation with Admiral Morrison. The council had been watching in silence for nearly an hour. This cannot be accurate, said Elder Thresh. the youngest member of the council at only 4,000 years old. The humans were rated as a Category 7 extinction risk. Our projections showed complete collapse within 800 years. The projections were wrong, Vareth replied. His voice was calm, but inside he felt something he had not experienced in millennia: worry. Projections do not fail, insisted Elder Moth. She was the council's chief scientist, responsible for all studies of developing species. We have used the same models for 50,000 years. They have never been wrong. Vareth changed the display to show the star map that Danny Reeves had shown Zereth. Red for Velthury space, blue for human space, and all around the blue, dozens of other colors representing species allied with humanity. Then explain this, he said. The humans control 47 star systems. They have formed alliances with the Rethani, the Korvax, the Silith, and at least 9 other species we classified as primitive or dying. They have built a coalition that controls key hyperspace routes. Their technology rivals our own. In some areas, it exceeds it. The council stared at the map in stunned silence. The Rethani were cave dwellers when we last observed them, Elder Krath said slowly. How did they reach space? The humans gave them ships. They shared technology freely with any species that asked for help. That violates all principles of non-interference, Moth protested. Giving advanced technology to primitive species destabilizes their natural development. It creates chaos. Vareth pulled up another set of images. These showed Rethani cities, bustling with activity. Rethani scientists working alongside humans in research stations. Rethani children attending schools built with human help. Does this look like chaos to you? Vareth asked. The Rethani have increased their population by 300% since joining the Human Alliance. Their quality of life has improved by every measurable standard. They are thriving. Impossible, Moth said, but her voice was uncertain now. Vareth changed the display again. Now it showed a recording from one of Zyrith's crew members. The video showed the interior of Gateway Prime Station. Species from a dozen worlds moved through the corridors together. They talked. They laughed. They worked side by side without any sign of the conflict or chaos that Velthury models predicted. We spent 50,000 years building the Dominion, Vareth said. We conquered or absorbed every species we encountered. We created order through control. We enforced stability through power. He gestured at the recording. The humans did not do any of those things. They did not conquer. They did not force anyone to join them. They simply offered help to anyone who needed it. And in 3,000 years, they built something we could not build in 50,000. Elder Thresh shook his head. You are saying that our entire approach to galactic civilization has been wrong? I am saying that we missed something. Something important. Vareth walked to the edge of the circle and stared up at the crystal walls, watching the stars move in their ancient patterns. When we encountered new species, we evaluated them based on their technology and their behavior at that moment. We did not consider what they might become. We saw the humans fighting wars and assumed they would always fight wars. We saw the Rethani living in caves and assumed they would always live in caves. He turned back to face the council. The humans did not make that mistake. They looked at every species and saw potential, possibility. They asked what a species could become, not what it was. And then they helped them become it. A long silence filled the chamber. The elders looked at each other, uncertain for the first time in living memory. What do we do now? Asked Elder Krath. Vareth pulled up the most recent transmission from human space. It was a formal communication, signed by Admiral Morrison and countersigned by representatives of every species in the Human Alliance. The humans have sent us a message. They are inviting us to a summit. They want to discuss the future relationship between the Dominion and their coalition. We should refuse, Thresh said quickly. We cannot negotiate with a species we abandoned. It shows weakness. We may not have a choice. Vareth highlighted a portion of the star map. Look at the hyperspace routes. The humans and their allies control the 3 most important trade paths in this sector. If they close those routes to us, our economy will suffer. If they decide to become hostile, they have the ships and the allies to cause serious damage to our borders. Then we should strike first, suggested Eldervorn. He was the Council's military advisor, and his answer to most problems involved ships and weapons. We send the war fleet. We show them what Veltari power looks like. And then what? Vareth asked. We destroy Earth. We scatter the human fleet. What happens to their allies? The Rithani will not forgive us. The Korvax will not forgive us. We will have created enemies on a dozen fronts, all of them united against us. Vorn looked frustrated, but had no answer. The humans have done something clever, Vareth continued. They have built a coalition based on loyalty, not fear. Their allies do not stay because they are afraid to leave. They stay because they want to stay. If we attack the humans, we attack all of them. And they will fight together with a unity that our subject species have never shown. He let that sink in before continuing. I believe we have 2 choices. We can go to war against an enemy that outnumbers us and is fighting for something they believe in. Or we can go to this summit and try to find a peaceful solution. What kind of peaceful solution could there be? Moth asked. The humans hate us. We abandoned them. We left them to die. Yes, we did. And that was a mistake. Vareth said the words that no Veltari elder had spoken in recorded history. We were wrong. We misjudged them. We failed them. And now we have to live with the consequences of that failure. The council erupted in argument. Some demanded war. Others demanded isolation. A few suggested that they could simply pretend the humans did not exist and hope the problem went away on its own. Vareth waited for them to quiet down. Then he spoke one final time. I will be going to this summit. I will represent the Dominion and try to find a path forward that does not lead to destruction. You may vote to overrule me if you wish, but I warn you now, the galaxy is not ours anymore. The humans and their allies have changed everything. We can adapt to that change, or we can fight against it. But we cannot ignore it. He walked out of the chamber without waiting for a vote. Behind him, the elders sat in stunned silence, staring at a star map that showed them a future they had never imagined possible. A future where the Veltari Dominion was no longer the most powerful force in the galaxy. A future built by the species they had left behind. The summit was held on a small moon called Neutral Ground. It orbited a dead planet in a system that belonged to no one. The humans had chosen the location carefully. It was exactly halfway between Veltari space and the territory of the Human Alliance. Admiral Kate Morrison arrived first. Aboard a ship called the Rising Dawn, Captain Danny Reeves stood beside her on the bridge. As they approached the moon's only structure, a simple meeting hall built specifically for this occasion. Are you sure about this? Danny asked. He had been against the summit from the beginning. He wanted the Veltari to suffer for what they had done. Many humans felt the same way. Kate looked at the view screen. Veltari ships were appearing on the far side of the moon. Dozens of them, sleek and silver, arranged in perfect formation. No, she admitted. I am not sure, but this is the right thing to do. They left us to die. Yes, they did. And if we become like them, then they win. We become cold and uncaring and willing to let others suffer because it does not affect us. Kate turned to face him. That is not who we are, Danny. That is not who we want to be. Danny looked like he wanted to argue more, but he held his tongue. Kate had earned his respect over many years of service together. If she believed this was the right path, He would follow her. The meeting hall was a simple circular room with a round table in the center. Windows on all sides showed the barren surface of the moon and the stars beyond. Kate entered with Danny and 2 other officers. Elder Vareth entered from the opposite door with 3 Velthari advisors. They sat across from each other. For a long moment, no one spoke. Kate studied Elder Vareth. He was old, even older than she had expected. His gray skin was wrinkled with countless years. His 4 eyes showed exhaustion and something else. Something that might have been shame. "Thank you for coming," Kate said finally. "Thank you for inviting us," Vareth replied. His Velthari accent was thick, but his words were clear. "I must admit, I expected this to be a trap. Many on my council believed you wanted to lure us here and destroy us. If we wanted to destroy you, we would not need tricks." Kate's voice was matter-of-fact, not threatening. "We have the ships. We have the allies. We could wage a war against the Dominion right now and probably win." Vareth inclined his head. "Then why are we here instead?" Kate leaned back in her chair. "Because war is easy, Elder. Any fool can start a war. It takes wisdom to build something better." The negotiations began. They lasted 7 days. The Velthari offered technology. Kate refused. The humans had developed their own technology, often better than what the Velthari possessed. The Velthari offered resources. Kate refused. The human alliance was resource-rich, with mining operations across dozens of worlds. The Velthari offered formal apologies, carefully worded to acknowledge wrongdoing without admitting legal responsibility. Kate refused that too. "Your apologies mean nothing," she told Vareth on the 4th day. "You are only sorry because we became powerful enough to threaten you. If we were still primitive, if we had died the way you predicted, you would never apologize. You would simply take our planet and move on." Vareth could not deny it. The truth hung in the air between them. "Then tell me what you want," he said. "What will satisfy humanity? What will end this conflict before it begins?" Kate stood and walked to one of the windows. Outside, human ships and Velthari ships held position near each other. They could start shooting at any moment. One wrong word, one misunderstanding, and millions would die. "I do not want your technology or your resources or your apologies," Kate said. "I want you to understand something." She turned to face him. "When your people abandoned us, we had 2 choices. We could let it destroy us, or we could let it make us stronger. We chose to be stronger. Every death, every tragedy, every moment of despair made us more determined to survive. And when we finally reached the stars, we made a promise to ourselves." Her voice grew harder. "We promised that we would never do to another species what was done to us. We would never watch others suffer when we had the power to help. We would never abandon anyone the way we were abandoned." She gestured at the window, at the ships waiting outside. The Rathani were dying. Their sun was killing their world. Your people knew and did nothing. We gave them ships. We helped them find new homes. Now they are our closest friends. She counted on her fingers. The Korvax were starving. Their crops failed for 3 years in a row. Your people recorded the famine and filed it in your archives. We sent food ships. We taught them new farming methods. Now they feed half the Alliance. Another finger. The Silith were being hunted by predators from another world. Your people watched the population drop by 60%. We sent soldiers. We helped them fight back. Now they provide security for our outer colonies." Kate walked back to the table and placed both hands on its surface, leaning toward Vareth. "You looked at humanity and saw chaos. You saw war and division and decided we were worthless. But you missed the one thing that made us different from you. We care. We actually care about other beings. Their pain hurts us. Their suffering moves us to action. That is something your simulations could never measure. because you do not feel it yourselves. Vareth sat very still. His advisors looked uncomfortable. No one had ever spoken to a Velthari elder this way. "You are right," Vareth said at last. His voice was quiet, almost a whisper. "We do not feel what you feel. We never have. It is not in our nature. We observe. We study. We maintain order. But we do not love. Not the way you do." He stood slowly, his ancient joints creaking. "I came here hoping to negotiate a peace treaty. Trade agreements. Border definitions. Political arrangements. I see now that such things are meaningless." He looked at Kate with something like respect. "You do not want our treaties. You want us to become better than we are." Kate nodded. "Yes, that may not be possible. We have been who we are for 50,000 years. Change does not come easily to the Velthari." "It did not come easily to us either," Kate replied. "We nearly destroyed ourselves learning how to change. But we did it anyway, because the alternative was worse." The room fell silent. Danny Reeves watched the exchange with surprise. He had expected threats and demands and shows of force. He had not expected this quiet, honest conversation about the nature of entire civilizations. Vareth extended one of his 4 hands. It was shaking slightly. "I cannot promise that my people will change. I cannot promise that we will become what you want us to be. But I can promise that I will try. I will take your words back to the council. I will make them listen. And perhaps, in time, the Velthari will learn what humanity learned long ago." Kate looked at his outstretched hand. Then she took it. "It is called a handshake," she said. "It means we are not enemies. Not friends yet, but not enemies. And if we fail?" Vareth asked. "If we cannot change?" Kate released his hand and stepped back. "Then stay out of our way. The galaxy does not belong to the Velthari anymore. It belongs to everyone who was told they did not matter. Everyone who was left behind. Everyone who survived anyway." She smiled, and this time there was warmth in it. "We are not here to punish you, Elder. We are not here for revenge. We are here because we built something beautiful out of all the pain you caused us. And we want to see if you are capable of building something beautiful too." The summit ended that day. No treaties were signed. No agreements were made. But something had shifted. Something had changed. Vareth returned to Velthari space with Kate's words echoing in his mind. He stood before the council and told them everything. Some were angry. Some were frightened. A few, the youngest ones, were curious. Change began slowly. A handful of Velthari scientists started studying the human alliance, not as subjects, but as teachers. Some Velthari ships began offering help to struggling species instead of just observing them. It was not much. It was not fast. But it was a beginning. And on Earth, Kate Morrison stood in the abandonment memorial garden and looked at the wall of names. 2.7 billion people who had died waiting for help that never came. "We did it," she said softly, to no one in particular. "We survived. We became more than they thought we could be. And now maybe, just maybe, we can help them become more too." The stars burned cold in the sky above Gateway Prime, but for the first time in 3,000 years, they did not feel quite so empty. Humanity had found its place among them, and the galaxy would never be the same.